When I originally crossed paths with Melissa, I was drawn in by her allure, unaware of the web of manipulation she was weaving. She thought I was easily swayed, but I stayed watchful, dissecting her every move while playing along. As the layers of her facade started to peel away, I realized the true game at hand. The moment of reckoning loomed, and I could feel the shift in power. What happened next was far from what she expected, and it changed everything between us. But how did I turn the tables just in time? Although I was cautious, I couldn't help but feel magnetically pulled to Melissa from the moment we met. The main chemistry between us was undeniable. When I originally saw her in the park, her beauty captivated me. She sat there, flipping her hair with an effortless ease that made my heart race. I felt a magnetic allure, pulling me closer despite my instincts urging me to walk lightly. We shared laughs and secrets, and it felt like we were the only two people in the world. I wanted to believe she was different from anyone I'd known. But deep down, something whispered that I should be careful. I sensed a darkness hiding beneath her charm. Still, I couldn't resist getting to know her better. As days turned into weeks, that magnetic force didn't fade. It intensified. I'd find myself lost in her eyes, believing she was there for me. But whenever I tried to get closer, she'd pull away, leaving me confused and desperate for her love. I felt the warmth of her smile, yet the distance she made felt like a betrayal. It was a push and pull that left me spinning. I realized I was caught in her game, unsure of my next move. It's amazing how minor signs of manipulation can slip under your radar when you're infatuated. At the beginning, I thought Melissa was lovely and fun. But looking back, I can see the cunning behaviors she used to keep me hooked. She'd act sweet one moment, then turn cold the next. It was like a game to her, and I was just a piece on her board. Whenever I brought up feelings or worries, she'd twist my words and make me doubt myself. I felt like I was walking on eggshells, constantly trying to avoid causing her emotional turmoil. When I wanted to hang out with friends, she'd sulk and make me feel bad. It was as if my happiness rested on her approval, and that should have been a red flag. Melissa often played the victim too. If I ever challenged her about anything, she'd turn it back on me, saying I was being unreasonable or selfish. I started to feel confused, stuck in her web of lies and half-truths. I realized I was losing pieces of myself, trying to please her. How could I have been so blind to Melissa's betrayal? It hit me like a ton of bricks when I saw her with Jake, laughing and mumbling secrets. The trust I thought we shared shattered in an instant, leaving me with a whirlwind of betrayal feelings. I felt like a fool, thinking how I could have missed the signs. Each flirtatious smile she threw at other guys was like a knife turning in my gut. I started questioning everything. Was our bond real or just another game for her? The deeper I dug, the more trust issues emerged. Friends told me stories of her past relationships, how she played with people's hearts, leaving them confused and hurt. I felt scared. I loved her, yet I was drowning in this chaos she made. I confronted her, looking for honesty, but I was met with more lies. She smiled and called me silly, pushing my feelings aside like they were nothing. I wanted to scream, to make her see the pain she caused. But all I could do was stand there, feeling trapped in her web of lies. The deception cut deep, igniting a rage I couldn't control. I knew I had to take charge of my own emotions. I wouldn't be her pawn anymore. Melissa thought she was the player, but now I was ready to turn the tables. I just needed the right time to reveal the truth and end this toxic game once and for all. As I navigated the stormy seas of my feelings, the love triangle between Melissa, Jake, and me became a tangled mess I couldn't ignore. Every day felt like a fight, filled with emotional conflict that left me drained. I cared deeply for Melissa, yet every time I saw her laughing with Jake, a knot twisted in my gut. It wasn't just jealousy, it was the awareness that I was part of a game I didn't want to play. The romantic tension was obvious. I wanted to approach her, to demand answers, but fear held me back. What if I lost her completely? I felt trapped in a whirlwind of love and betrayal, longing for her care while feeling discarded. Melissa had a way of making me feel important, yet I couldn't shake the feeling that I was just one of her many players. Jake, on the other hand, was someone I found myself drawn to. He was sincere and kind, a stark contrast to Melissa's manipulative ways. As I spent more time with him, I realized I was forming feelings for him too. It was confusing and stressful. How could I be falling for two people at once? Each day, the stress grew thicker. I was caught between wanting to protect my heart and the urge to fight for what I thought was right. The love triangle felt suffocating, and I knew something had to change before I lost myself completely. While digging deeper into Melissa's life, I stumbled upon some unsettling truths that shook my image of her. The more I learned, the clearer it became that she had hidden intentions. I found out about her past relationships, especially one that ended in sadness. It turned out her ex-boyfriend cheated on her, leaving her with mental scars that ran deep. I realized Melissa wasn't just manipulating me. She was using our friendship as a shield against her pain. I felt a rush of anger and pity. It was as if she turned her hurt into a game, dragging me and Jake into her tangled web of lies. I wanted to scream at her for being so selfish, for making us players in her emotional chess match. But the more I found, the more I understood. She was afraid of vulnerability, so she played with our hearts to keep herself safe. Yet, that didn't excuse her behavior. I felt deceived, like I had trusted someone who was never truly there. I wondered how much of her charm was real and how much was just a mask. I couldn't let her keep playing me like this. The understanding that she had been hiding her true self pushed me to confront her. I knew I had to act before she hurt me or Jake deeper. A victim in her game. Even though I was caught in a chaotic emotional storm, I found myself building an unexpected alliance with Jake. Initially, it felt strange. We were both tangled in Melissa's web, but instead of competing, we started to share our stories. I realized Jake was just as confused by Melissa's tactics as I was. It wasn't long before our talks turned into unexpected friendships. As we talked, I could see the spark of understanding in his eyes. We both wanted to discover the truth about Melissa. It felt like we were two detectives on a job, piecing together clues. This bond became a strategic relationship. We shared information, plotted our next moves, and backed each other. I remember one evening, sitting in the coffee shop, plotting how to face Melissa together. The thrill of having someone by my side, someone who knew my pain, was empowering. I was no longer alone in this fight. Our union gave me strength. Jake's friendship helped me feel less cheated by Melissa. Instead of wallowing in sorrow, I began to see the bigger picture. Together, we could challenge her authority. Every time we laughed or shared stories, I felt the weight of my situation lift, even if just a little. In that moment, I knew we were stronger together. Our unexpected bond was a lifeline in a storm of chaos. I was ready to take back my power, and with Jake by my side, I felt invincible. The moment I addressed Melissa in the coffee shop, I felt a surge of confidence unlike anything I'd experienced before. I was no longer the innocent pawn in her game. I had turned the tables. The power dynamics had changed, and I was ready to expose her for what she truly was. Sitting across from her, I could see the flicker of surprise in her eyes. She thought I was clueless, but I had been gathering power and clarity, and it felt exhilarating. As I laid out the facts, I could almost hear the walls of her emotional fortress cracking. I spoke about the lies, the trickery, and how she played us both like pieces on a chessboard. This was emotional combat, and I was armed with knowledge. I could see her frustration building, the anger bubbling just beneath the surface. She was losing control, and it fueled my drive. Melissa tried to twist my words, to turn the blame back on me, but I stood strong. I refused to let her gaslight me any longer. I was no longer afraid of her methods. I could feel the balance of power shifting in my favor, and it felt like a revelation. In that moment, I understood that confronting her wasn't just about ending the game, it was about reclaiming my own strength. I was tired of being a victim. I was ready to take charge of my own story. It was time for her game to end. As I faced Melissa in the coffee shop, excitement coursed through me, sharpening my focus. The air was thick with anxiety, and I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. This was the moment I'd been waiting for. It was time for our emotional showdown. I stood tall, ready to share the truth that had been haunting me. "Melissa, you've been playing games with both of us," I said, my voice calm but laced with anger. Her eyes widened, and for a short moment, I saw a flicker of fear. "I'm not your pawn anymore." I felt free saying those words. The truth was finally out. She laughed, trying to regain control. "You don't know what you're talking about. Jake and I are just friends." But I wasn't going to let her control me anymore. "Just friends. I've seen the way you play. You've been dragging us along, and I won't be a part of this any longer." The shock on her face was rewarding, but I knew it wouldn't last. She'd try to spin this back on me. "You don't understand me at all," she snapped, but I could see the cracks growing in her facade. "I understand more than you think," I answered, my voice cutting through her defenses. "This ends now." In that moment, the power changed. I wasn't just facing her. I was reclaiming my life. No more games. No more lies. The truth was eventually revealed, and I was ready to walk away. Reclaiming my life felt like moving into bright sunlight after being stuck in a dark room for years. I was done letting Melissa's lies define me. I wanted to find my true self and my voice. Every day was a fight, but I was ready to rise up. I started hanging out with people who actually cared, like Jake. He told me that I had strength inside me. With each little win, like sharing my story or facing my fears, I felt like I was breaking free. It was thrilling. I found things I loved that Melissa had tried to take away. I painted bright pictures, danced, and laughed, things that made me happy. Every step I took to reclaim my life made me feel strong. I understood I wasn't just a victim. I was a fighter. I found strength in being honest and faith in being me. I broke away from Melissa's lies and welcomed a new phase, where I was the one in charge. The darkness that used to wrap around me slowly faded. I learned that finding my freedom wasn't just about running away from Melissa. It was about accepting who I really was. I came out of that nightmare not just whole but even stronger. I was ready to face the world, and nothing would stop me. I had been through a lot, but after everything with Melissa, I was determined to build a life that truly represented me. It wasn't easy to shake off the hurt from her deception. I had to work hard to find my confidence again. I knew I needed to put myself first. I surrounded myself with friends who really cared. Jake stood by me, helping me through the pain. "You need to find what makes you happy," he said one day. So, I took his advice and jumped into things I loved. I started drawing and writing. With each brush stroke and every word, I felt a little more like myself again. As I moved on, I learned something important. I had to set limits. No one, especially not a cunning ex, would decide my worth. I found strengths I didn't know I had, and that felt awesome. I faced my fears. And with each task, I felt a surge of power. Now, I wake up ready to take on the world. The scars from my past tell me of my journey, not my weakness. I turned my pain into meaning. I'm ready for whatever comes next. My story isn't just about betrayal, it's about rising stronger. I'm building a future that shows who I really am. And no one can take that away from me. The room was thick with expectation. I turned back to the crowd, the weight of their gazes on me. "I'm not afraid of you," I said, my voice steady. "You've hurt too many people, and it ends now." Gasps filled the air, and I could see the shift in their faces. I was no longer alone in this fight. The truth was out, and I was ready to face whatever came next. Reclaiming my life felt like moving into bright sunlight after being stuck in a dark room for years. I was done letting Jason's lies define me. I wanted to find my true self and my voice. Every day was a fight, but I was ready to rise up. I started hanging out with people who actually cared, like Lisa. She told me that I had strength inside me. With each little win, like sharing my story or facing my fears, I felt like I was breaking free. It was thrilling. I found things I loved that Jason had tried to take away. I painted bright pictures, danced, and laughed, things that made me happy. Every step I took to reclaim my life made me feel strong. I understood I wasn't just a victim, I was a fighter. I found strength in being honest and faith in being me. I broke away from Jason's lies and welcomed a new phase, where I was the one in charge. The darkness that used to wrap around me slowly faded. I learned that finding my freedom wasn't just about running away from Jason. It was about accepting who I really was. I came out of that nightmare not just whole but even stronger. I was ready to face the world, and nothing would stop me. I had been through a lot, but after everything with Jason, I was determined to build a life that truly represented me. It wasn't easy to shake off the hurt from his deception. I had to work hard to find my confidence again. I knew I needed to put myself first. I surrounded myself with friends who really cared. Lisa and Mia stood by me, helping me through the pain. "You need to find what makes you happy," Lisa said one day. So, I took her advice and jumped into things I loved. I started drawing and writing. With each brush stroke and every word, I felt a little more like myself again. As I moved on, I learned something important. I had to set limits. No one, especially not a cunning ex, would decide my worth. I found strengths I didn't know I had, and that felt awesome. I faced my fears, and with each task, I felt a surge of power. Now, I wake up ready to take on the world. The scars from my past tell me of my journey, not my weakness. I turned my pain into meaning. I'm ready for whatever comes next. My story isn't just about betrayal, it's about rising stronger. I'm building a future that shows who I really am, and no one can take that away from me.